Roger Federer just dropped an absolute bombshell that nobody in the tennis world saw coming, and it's about Alexandra ELA. The tennis legend's shocking revelation sent immediate shockwaves through social media, leaving fans bitterly divided and the entire internet on absolute fire. What exactly did he say? And why is everyone suddenly talking about the young Filipino tennis star in a way they never have before? This isn't just another casual endorsement or throwaway compliment from a retired champion. This is something deeper, something fundamentally more serious, something that completely changes how we see one of tennis's most promising rising talents. Nobody expected Roger Federer to go there, to cross that line, but he did. And now the entire tennis world wants answers immediately. It happened at what was supposed to be a routine press conference in Basel, Switzerland. Roger Federer, the man who has spent his entire legendary career carefully avoiding controversy and staying diplomatically neutral, was asked a simple question about the future of women's tennis. He smiled in that familiar way, paused for just a moment as if carefully considering his words, and then said something that would absolutely dominate sports headlines for days and ignite passionate debates across every corner of the tennis community. He mentioned Alexandra ELA by name. But not in the way you would typically expect from someone of Federer's stature and diplomatic reputation. Not with the usual polite, generic praise that's casually reserved for young developing talents. His entire tone shifted noticeably. There was genuine concern in his voice that you could hear. Maybe even disappointment. Alexandra ELA is incredibly talented, Federer began carefully, and the room full of international journalists immediately leaned in, sensing something unusual was about to happen. But I wonder if she's really playing her own game anymore. The conference room went completely quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. Experienced journalists exchanged confused glances with each other. What exactly did he mean by that cryptic statement? Federer continued speaking, choosing each word carefully but very deliberately, clearly knowing the impact his words would have. He talked broadly about the immense pressures that young players face in modern professional tennis. The massive sponsorship machines that surround them from the moment they show promise. The national federations that see talented players as financial investments and national assets rather than as vulnerable individuals with dreams and limits. And then he said it. The specific line that would ignite the entire internet and create a firestorm of controversy. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect these young players end up controlling them instead. And I've heard things about Alexandra's specific situation that genuinely worry me as someone who cares about this sport. He didn't elaborate further. He didn't provide specific examples or name names. He didn't need to. The implication was crystal clear to everyone in that room and everyone who would watch the clip later. Something was happening behind the closed doors in Alexandra ELA's career. Something the general public didn't know about. Something serious enough that even Roger Federer, a man universally known for staying completely out of drama and controversy, felt morally compelled to address publicly. The press conference eventually moved on to other topics, but the damage, or the truth depending on who you ask and what side you're on, was already out there spreading like wildfire. Within just hours, the video clip went absolutely viral across every social media platform. Twitter completely exploded with hot takes. Reddit threads filled rapidly with intense speculation and amateur detective work. YouTube channels scrambled frantically to analyze every single word Federer said, every facial expression, every pause. The question that everyone was asking was deceptively simple but incredibly loaded with implications. What is Alexandra ELA's dark secret? For a young player still desperately trying to establish herself firmly on the brutally competitive WTA tour, this was quite literally the last kind of attention she needed or wanted. But for the tennis world starving for drama and controversy, this was a story far too explosive and juicy to ignore. Roger Federer had deliberately opened a door that had been carefully kept closed, and now absolutely everyone wanted to know what was hiding behind it. But to truly understand why Federer's carefully chosen words hit so devastatingly hard and resonated so deeply, we absolutely need to go back and examine where Alexandra ELA's remarkable story really began, because context is everything here. Alexandra ELA isn't just another talented tennis player climbing the rankings. She's a genuine national icon, the pride of the entire Philippines, the first Filipino player ever to win a Grand Slam title even if it was at the junior level. Her historic 2022 US Open girls singles victory wasn't just a personal triumph or individual achievement. It was a moment of collective joy and national celebration for an entire country of over 100 million people that had waited literally decades for a tennis star to call their own and represent them on the global stage. Born in 2005, Alexandra was identified as a prodigy from the very start. Her parents recognized her extraordinary natural talent early and made a life-altering decision that would completely shape her entire existence. At just 11 years old, barely out of elementary school, she was sent alone to Spain to train at the prestigious Rafa Nadal Academy. 11 years old. Most kids that age are figuring out middle school social dynamics and homework. Alexandra was already living across the world, grinding daily on clay courts, away from her family and everything familiar, living the intense life of a professional athlete before she even hit puberty. The academy systematically polished her raw game. She won junior titles across Europe. She climbed rankings steadily. She became the undisputed face of Filipino tennis. But there was a cost that nobody talks about publicly. Every single interview, every post-match press conference, every sponsorship deal and public appearance, it all carried the crushing weight of national expectation. She wasn't just playing for herself and her own dreams. She was playing for an entire nation watching her every move. And that kind of suffocating pressure, it fundamentally changes you as a person. By the time she officially turned professional, Alexandra had already spent more cumulative time under the harsh spotlight than most players experience in their entire careers. She had lucrative deals with major international brands. She had a national federation investing heavily in her success and expecting returns. She had coaches, managers, agents, publicists, all with their own separate agendas and financial interests. Her life was no longer truly her own. It had become a carefully managed brand with stakeholders. From the outside looking in, it looked absolutely perfect. A young, talented, marketable star rapidly on the rise. But insiders whispered quietly. They always do in professional sports. There were persistent rumors about tensions with members of her team. Stories about sponsorship obligations that dictated her tournament schedule. Whispers that she wasn't actually the one making final decisions about her career direction anymore. And then Roger Federer said publicly what many people had been thinking privately, but absolutely no one dared to say out loud. Alexandra ELA, the golden girl of Philippine tennis, might not be as free as everyone assumed. So what exactly did Federer know that prompted him to speak? And why did he specifically choose this moment to say something? Federer didn't give specific names. He didn't directly point fingers at individuals or organizations. But his carefully chosen words painted a picture that was absolutely impossible to ignore for anyone paying attention. According to multiple sources close to the situation who spoke on condition of anonymity, what Federer was directly alluding to was the immense control that various stakeholders had accumulated over ELA's career decisions. This wasn't just about normal coaching advice or standard career guidance that all players receive. This was about a young, vulnerable player caught in a complicated web of binding financial commitments, federation expectations, and restrictive sponsorship obligations that left almost no room for genuine personal choice or autonomy. Here's what we know from investigating this situation. When Alexandra signed with major sponsors early in her developing career, the contracts came with serious strings attached. Mandatory appearance requirements at corporate events. Strict social media obligations dictating what she could post. Tournament schedules dictated not by what was objectively best for her long-term development as a player, but by what maximized brand visibility and sponsor exposure. She became a product, and a very valuable one at that. Then there's the complicated situation with the federation. The Philippine Tennis Association had invested significantly in Alexandra's career from a young age. They funded her expensive training abroad. They supported her international travel to tournaments. But investment always comes with expectations and strings. She wasn't just representing herself on court wearing her country's colors. She was representing an entire national sports program that desperately needed her to succeed publicly to justify its government funding and private donations. The pressure wasn't subtle, and everyone involved knew exactly what was at stake. The coaching situation raised eyebrows among tennis insiders too. multiple coaching changes in a relatively short period of time. Each time, the official public story was about finding the right fit and mutual decisions. But those close to the situation suggested something else entirely. Coaches who pushed back against the brutal schedule, who prioritized Alexandra's long-term development and mental health over short-term results and rankings, didn't last very long in their positions. The message was crystal clear. Fall in line with the program or get replaced. Roger Federer had seen this exact pattern before during his long career. He'd watched promising young talents burn out spectacularly under similar crushing pressure. He'd seen potentially Hall of Fame careers completely derailed, not by lack of skill or injuries, but by lack of agency and autonomy. And when he looked closely at Alexandra Iller's specific situation, he saw warning signs that he simply couldn't ignore. So he spoke up publicly, knowing full well the controversy it would create. But speaking up came with serious consequences that Federer clearly anticipated. The question now wasn't just about what was actually happening to Alexandra Iller behind the scenes. It was about whether Federer had the right to publicly expose it, whether his concern was genuinely altruistic, or whether he just made a young player's already complicated life infinitely more difficult. And the internet, predictably, had opinions. A lot of them. Strong ones. The backlash was immediate and absolutely fierce from multiple directions. Filipino fans, fiercely protective of their national tennis star and any criticism of her, flooded social media platforms with passionate defenses of Alexandra. They accused Federer of overstepping boundaries, of speaking about a complex situation he didn't fully understand, of using his massive platform irresponsibly to create controversy where there was none. Roger Federer needs to stay in his lane, one viral tweet that got hundreds of thousands of likes read. Alexandra Iller is doing just fine. We don't need a retired player trying to create drama. But others saw the situation completely differently. Respected tennis analysts and former players pointed out that Federer rarely speaks publicly without serious reason. If he was concerned enough to say something in a press conference, there was very likely substantial truth behind it. They cited similar historical cases. Young players who seemed destined for absolute greatness only to flame out tragically under the unbearable weight of external pressure. Reddit threads obsessively dissected every single aspect of Alexandra's career. Her tournament schedule patterns. Her multiple coaching changes. Her sponsorship deals and obligations. Disturbing patterns emerged that couldn't be easily dismissed by objective observers. The data and timeline suggested a player being pushed incredibly hard, perhaps far too hard, in relentless pursuit of results that would satisfy everyone except the actual person holding the racket. Women's tennis forums debated the broader implications passionately. This wasn't just about Alexandra Iller as an individual anymore. It was about a systemic problem that treats young female athletes as commodities, that prioritizes marketability over mental health, that measures success in sponsorship dollars rather than personal growth and happiness. Some fans called loudly for transparency. They wanted to hear directly from Alexandra herself. Was she happy? Did she feel in genuine control of her career? Or was Federer absolutely right to be publicly worried? But Alexandra stayed completely silent. No official statement. No social media post. Nothing. And that silence, it spoke volumes to those paying attention. The controversy had taken on a life of its own. What started as a casual comment from Federer had become a full-blown international debate about power, control, and the hidden cost of being a young star in professional tennis. This wasn't just about one player anymore. This was about exposing the entire system. So where does this ultimately leave us? And where does it leave Alexandra Iller? Roger Federer's words opened a door that tennis didn't know it desperately needed opened. Alexandra Iller's story became bigger than just one talented player. It became a reflection of how the sport systematically treats its rising stars, especially young women carrying the hopes of entire nations. Whether you think Federer was right to speak up or believe he crossed a line, one thing is undeniable. This conversation is far from over. What do you think? Was Federer completely out of line, or did he just say what everyone else was thinking? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay updated on the biggest stories and controversies shaking tennis, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story is still developing and you absolutely